Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight so you can learn about the residential rental program. First things first, we want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. If anybody needs to use the restroom, you can just go out this door, or the side door's over there. As soon as you go out, there's a restroom and drinking fountain just on the other side of the stairwell. And then if there's, by any chance, an emergency, need everybody to go out these doors, nice and easy, and just meet in the parking lot. Therefore, we know where everybody is, and we can keep track of it. Okay. With that said, we'll just go ahead and we'll start. And again, we do appreciate you coming. This is a presentation to give you an idea of what the residential program is. We did give you handouts. You do have the town ordinance. The PowerPoint we're going to go through and the handout that you've got is just a real quick summary of everything. That PowerPoint is a summary of the ordinance. Let's try to give it to you in layman's terms. A lot of the ordinances are written by attorneys, and we have to follow things through to make sure that we follow everything accordingly. This program, or what we're going to be talking about tonight, is not anything about, the ordinance itself. And if it's not right or whatever, the ordinance was passed back in April. Okay. It is done. This is to kind of give you guys an education of what it is. Our presentation is going to last about 20 minutes to a half an hour. Then we'll leave the rest of the time set up for questions and answers. And we're going to get out of here around 7:30. Okay. We did have sign-in sheets for those people who want to communicate, and whether it's nice for us to have information. I did pick up one of the sheets, and all it had was your name. It doesn't give us any information on how to get a hold of you. So if you could, I'll put the sheet back there. If anybody signed up, if you can just kind of give us your phone number, it'd be great. Also, if during this presentation and we haven't answered all your questions, we will be more than happy to sit down with anybody on a one-to-one basis and just give us a call, and we'll schedule the best we can. Because the most important part of this program is to make sure that you have all the pertinent information and we will communicate it very well to you. Okay? With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Amy.
I have a question. Who is we? You did not introduce anybody.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. You're right. I did not. Okay. My name is Rick Barr. I'm the building commissioner. This is Kimberly Newby. And this is Amy Eversole. Amy is our attorney. Kim will be the one who will be heading up the program. I'm the building commissioner, and it falls under my purview. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, as Rick said, on April 19th of this year, the Town Council adopted ordinance number 2022-G05, which added a new subchapter to the Town of Clarksville building regulations, and that is the Residential Rental Property Registration and Inspection Code, and you all have copies of the ordinance. And it was adopted under Indiana Code Title 36, Article 1, Chapter 20, which enables local governments to regulate residential leases through registration and inspection programs.
Okay, I have some goals for the program. Oh, thank you, sorry about that. Can everybody see better now? Sorry. Whoa, too much. Okay. So one of the goals is to improve safety and quality of life for the rental community, increase overall property values, provide avenues for renters to have open dialogue with the landlords, minimize code enforcement actions, and encourage a positive outlook on the town's rental properties in the communities. Applicability. Okay, so what properties are subject to the program? So we have residential rental units, rental unit communities, and we'll go through some of these in the next slide for you guys, okay? Areas associated with the rental unit, so common areas and parking lots. There are some exceptions. Non-residential property, so commercial, so this is just a residential rental inspection. Hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, short-term rental units, so less than 30 consecutive days as the same tenant. And then owner-occupied residential units. Note that if it's owner-occupied, only the unit that is occupied by the owner is exempt from the program.
Okay, now we're going to get into some definitions. The professional real estate manager, this will come into play a little later when we get into the inspection requirements. There's no statutory definition of professional real estate manager. If we could, when we drafted the ordinance, if there was a statutory definition, we just adopted those. However, Indiana Code 2534.13-2 sets out requirements for who may manage real estate, including licensing and exceptions to licensing requirements. And if a property has a professional real estate manager, the manager's qualifications or their exemption information will be provided to the town at the time of registration. And a professional real estate manager is defined as an individual, partnership, corporation, or limited liability company satisfying the requirements to manage real estate set forth in the statute. And okay, so the next definition is for a residential rental unit, which Kimberly said we would go into this a little bit. What qualifies as a residential rental unit? A structure or part of the structure that is used as a home, residence, or sleeping unit by one individual who maintains a household, or two or more individuals who maintain a common household, or any grounds, facilities, or area promised for the use of a residential tenant, including the following: an apartment unit, a boarding house, a rooming house, a mobile home space, a single or two-family dwelling. So a unit by definition includes the associated grounds and facilities that tenants may use. Okay, a residential rental unit community is one or more parcels of contiguous real property upon which are located one or more structures containing rental units if the combined total of all rental units and all the structures are 5 or more rental units, and the rental units are not occupied solely by the owner or the owner's family. So if you have rental units on more than one parcel of property, those parcels must be touching to qualify. And there has to be 5 or more units to qualify. And if there are less than 5 units, those would need to be registered separately, because if something qualifies as a community, there's one registration for the whole community. So, like an apartment complex would have one registration, or multiple duplexes, as long as they were on contiguous parcels and qualified, would have one registration. Yeah, and so, like we said earlier, units occupied by the owner are excluded from the program, but units occupied by the owner's family, those must have to be registered.
Okay, overview of some requirements. If you have a hazardous condition, that's immediate notification to us. Registration. Initial registration is to be completed by January 13th of 2023. This is an annual registration. Inspections are scheduled upon registration. So you register and then you will schedule an inspection. Inspections are every 3 years. So each individual unit is inspected every 3 years. So it's not every year, it's every 3 years.
We register yearly.
Because it's an annual registration. Okay, so hazardous conditions. Immediately notify the building commissioner of any hazardous conditions, including fire, flood, interruption of electrical or water services for the duration of 4+ hours, sewage backup, and other hazardous health hazards. Generally, these are serious conditions that endanger the life and safety of your residents. Okay, so registration. Single registration for each residential unit for the entire residential rental unit community. Okay, so rental property registration application is submitted electronically with a payment of $5 registration fee. So it's $5 for the rental unit community, or it's also $5 for each individual unit that is not part of a community. And she explained the difference between. This is valid for 1 year, and like I said before, registration is annually, so you have to register your properties every year. Okay, so newly created, newly established rental units. Let's see. Those are to be registered before it's occupied by a tenant. Transferred ownership. New owners can complete the initial registration within 30 days of buying a complex or a rental unit. Change of registration. That's information only, so there's no fee for that or anything. If any of the following occur, the owner shall submit and change of registration for electronically to the town within 30 days. So change of professional real estate manager, change in contact information for the owner, landlord, professional real estate manager, change in the number of residential rental units in the residential community. So those would be the things you have to contact us about. Inspections. So let's talk about routine inspections versus non-routine inspections. Routine are every 3 years, like I said before. So like I said, each individual unit will be inspected every 3 years. Non-routine, if the office of the building commissioner has reason to believe or receives a complaint that residential unit does not, that doesn't comply within the Apple code, that's when we would do a non-routine inspection. What conduct at the inspection? Okay, so regular scheduled inspections are performed by the town. They're $200 each unit. Third-party inspections may qualify if all the requirements are met. Of course, there is no fee from the town for that, but you would have to pay whoever you get to inspect those for you. Okay, so what everybody wants to know, what's going to be inspected? Okay, electric supply and electrical systems, plumbing and plumbing systems, water supply, including hot water, so of course we're going to make sure they have hot water, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, equipment and systems, so we're going to check those for you guys. Bathroom and bathroom toilet facilities, doors, windows, stairways, and hallways. We're going to check all those. Functioning smoke detectors, and the structure in which the rental unit is located. So that comes back to the common areas and stuff like that.
Okay, so she had mentioned third-party inspections. So what properties qualify for third-party inspections? The rental unit has to be managed by or part of a rental unit community managed by a professional real estate manager. During the previous 12 months, the rental unit has been inspected or is part of a rental unit community that has been inspected by either of the following: by or for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, or another federal or state agency, or a financial institution or insurance company authorized to do business in Indiana, and it has to be performed by a qualified inspector, which is a registered architect, a professional engineer, or someone who holds a valid unexpired nationally recognized code organization certification as a commercial building inspector. A written inspection report of the inspection has been issued for all of the items required to be inspected, which is what the list you just went over, and those came straight from the statute. The inspection report is delivered to the town on or before the due date given after completion of registration. So the inspection report must not be more than 12 months old when it's delivered to the town, and those inspections by third parties are also valid for 3 years, just like once performed by the town.
Okay, so these are the fees that we have. Registration fee, like I've already talked about, was $5. Third-party inspections, of course, would be you guys paying for your own if you wanted to do that. A regular scheduled inspection is $200 per unit. It's every 3 years. A rescheduling fee is $100. A re-inspection fee is $300.
And a note on the fees, you all can discuss this with your attorneys, but there is a statute, Indiana Code 36-122, payment of fees assessed by political subdivisions, which this is a fee assessed by the town. Except as provided in subsection B, which we'll get to, the owner of a rental unit assessed any fee by political subdivision pertaining to the rental unit may notify the tenants of the rental unit of the assessment of the fee and require the tenants to reimburse the owner for payment of the fee. And then the exception, tenants of a rental unit may not be required to reimburse the owner for fees assessed relating to construction, such as building permit fees.
Okay, so the inspection report and inspection certificate. Regardless of who performs the inspection, a written inspection report will be issued to the owner verifying that everything that has been inspected. On confirmation of a valid, unexpired registration, payment of all fees, and completion of an inspection with no deficiencies, the town will issue a inspection certificate. That is valid, like we've said, for 3 years. Generally, a valid, unexpired inspection certificate can be transferred to a new owner. There are some exceptions, and they're in the ordinance for you. Subject to rectification, all notices and after a notice and a hearing, circumstances set forth in the ordinance. Deficiencies, let's see. If in the course of the inspection, violations of the state or town codes are discovered, those will be handled through the application ordinances and or the unsafe building law. I'm going to open it up for questions, but we're going to let Rick speak for a second.
Okay. So that gives us, we got about 45 minutes time for questions, so that hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions. If I know some of them are going to have some duplicate questions. If you could just kind of, if your question is answered, just give everybody else another time. If you need to come back and ask that question, you can. But it's an open discussion. Any questions? I know you have many. Go ahead.
Well,
Yes,
my
thank you.
first one would be, they're talking about you're going to inspect the property, and you're going to go for deficiencies of the bathroom and the facilities around it, and maybe the kitchen area, what's going on. I'm not talking about turning the water on and off. I'm talking about the pigs that don't clean their house out, that tear up the cabinets, that everything's a mess when you walk in there. Is that going to be a failure on my part because they don't keep their house clean?
No.
And so
What is that?
that would be who determines
Which slide?
that?
The one what we're expecting. Okay. And again, so the most important, and again, I'll preface this and back it up, and I'm going to let them do more talking than me. This is not a code enforcement inspection. This is more, best way to say it's more of a quality of life inspection. So when we take a look at this is what we're going to check. We're not checking the cleanliness of the apartment. We're not checking to see the color of paint. We're not looking, we're looking for this. This is a quality of life. Everybody on this you would
Well, it says
expect.
bathroom and toilet facilities.
We're
not
okay,
bins.
bathroom, we're gonna check to make sure
Make
the
the toilet
toilet
flushes
is
and the water
flushing.
turns on.
Yep.
and-
Right.
and
We're
walk out.
gonna look for leaks, and, if the floor is failing, okay, but, that's what that is strictly for plumbing. So we'll open up the cabinet to see if the plumbing is proper. Flushing, we're not looking for, you may have a stained tub, we're not looking at that, that's not the intent. We'll run the water, make sure it flows. Same with the electrical, I mean, if you look at these, are kind of basic. This is basic inspection.
I thought things were really good shape and walked in and found out they weren't.
Correct.
And then I don't want to pay another $300 because, that we expended, that's fine.
Right. And we are not whatsoever inspecting the condition of how your tenant, this is, again, has nothing to do with the tenants, it's just to make sure that these items are maintained. How the condition of that apartment is still to the landlord.
A related question on the smoke detectors. We have working smoke detectors. Every time we turn over an apartment, we have a walkthrough list that shows that they've been checked and they signed up. But we also have tenants that take the batteries out or unhook the smoke detectors, and we can't go every single day to make sure they're hooked up. I'm a fanatic about safety,
Absolutely.
but I don't want to get charged $500 because there's a not working smoke detector because they took it down. What do you do to put some responsibility on the tenants
tenants,
instead
okay.
of just on us?
So, once you register, some of the, and we understand that. We go into a lot of these apartments, and we do understand that the tenant has gone through and they have eliminated, taking the batteries out. They don't like it, so they tear them off the ceiling, off the wall, wherever you put them. Once you register, then you will have, it'll be about 30 to 40 days. We'll let you kind of choose a date. It's not necessarily that it'll be that date because, there's going to be other ones, but we'll give you about a 30 to 40 day window. Then you get to choose. I'm just going to make it nice. We got a 30 unit complex. We're going to check 10 units of that the first year, 10 units the second year, 10 units the third year. You get to choose those 10. The first year you choose the 10, next year you choose the next 10, the last year the last 10. You'll have an opportunity yourself, but I would recommend to do a pre-inspection before we come in. Okay. It's always good to date the side of that, that unit so you know what it is. Okay, so, does that kind of help?
I still feel like we're taking a burden because they tear up our property. And like I said, we can't go every single day. We could inspect it today and you're coming tomorrow and they still taking them down because they want to smoke even when they're not supposed to.
If you have got a receipt to show that you put them in, just like, let's say you put them in March, okay? We come the 1st of April. If you have a receipt that you've got,
If we have a walkthrough list with the tenant that they sign that says
Yeah,
they're
oh,
working,
absolutely.
is that sufficient?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should. It is, you should have this, which I think most landlords do, that these are the requirements. This is their responsibility. You supply it, they're responsible to make sure the batteries are put in, they're responsible to take care of specific.
So if it's not, are we still getting fined?
I think we can work with that. We're gonna go ahead and let me start. Oh, okay, yeah.
Ms. Barr, how does this affect any eviction processes or anything of that nature that we may or may not get into because the tenant is going to sabotage the unit prior to going to eviction court?
We don't deal with evictions. That's,
You will be, because, well, I mean, they're going to stop the eviction because the tenants sabotage the unit?
Can I add something to that question?
hang on.
Yeah, it's,
The only reason I'm asking that, we've had other cities attempt to do this, and we created problems, and then it was a problem, and that became a problem because it stopped it for the eviction process because the unit was not safe, that kind of thing.
So there was a law that was passed during COVID, and it prevented municipalities from interfering with eviction processes. We're not here to interfere with you evicting your tenant. You have that right to evict them. If you can document during an inspection that a tenant has repeatedly damaged the property and you have made a repair, then you can use our inspection to assist you and provide evidence to get that tenant out.
Not without you appearing in court with us. We can't provide you a document that's hearsay. We have to have someone from.
I'll defer to attorney to address that one.
Hey, can you all repeat the question when somebody
Sure.
states it so we know?
I'm trying to understand the question. I believe the question was, will our inspection process interfere with your due process to evict a tenant?
Correct.
The answer is, we're not here to step between your process to evict your tenant. That is the tenant-landlord relationship, and state law says that we cannot interfere with that. What we are there to do is to make sure that the unit is safe and meets certain health standards for any tenant who would be there.
Okay, if that tenant tears the property up and intentionally or whatever, does that tenant get to pay the fine, or do the landlord still responsible for it?
As I stated, an example is another community that I work for, just for everybody to know. My name's Kevin Beatty, I'm the town manager. I've implemented this type of program in 2 other communities. If we come in and you determine that, or we find an example, the bathroom door is missing, it's got a hole kicked in it. Obviously, somebody damaged the door, either the tenant, a visitor to the tenant, or somebody else. You tell us, look, I repaired the door, they've damaged it again, I'm not going to repair the door. I had a situation where a tenant damaged 3 doors, and the landlord said, I'm done, I'm trying to kick him out, I'm not replacing the door to the bathroom. The agreement was, we understand, the tenant tore it up. The door is not an integral part of the toilet and its facilities. A door is a convenience. The tenant tore the door up. We cannot assist you in getting your money back, but we will not hold that against you if you can show us that you have made the repair in a timely fashion and the tenant has tore it up.
Okay, so the fines would not be in place.
I use the door as a good example because it's not a requirement here. If the tenant ripped out the supply line, that's an applicable problem. And if you could show us that they did it, then it's on the tenant. And that is enforceable by you, not by us. But we would give you time to deal with the tenant in order to make the repair if they damage the unit.
And just to also follow up, you keep saying, we're not looking at fines.
I think what he's talking about is the reinspection fee.
Okay.
So if we bring a receipt to you showing that that door's been repaired, do we then avoid the $300 reinspection?
Correct.
Because we bring in a receipt and say,
Absolutely.
here's a door.
And
Same thing with the smoke detector. If the smoke detector doesn't have a battery in it, when you all inspect, then we can bring a receipt up here that says smoke detector or 9-volt battery. And no
the best thing to
reinspection.
do is when you're making the repair, document it with a photograph, because then we can place it in the file. Because if the tenant comes in and says they haven't made that repair, we can pull out a documentation you provide and say, yes, they have. You've torn it up. Post the inspection. We're not coming back to do another inspection and cost them more money. You tore it up.
But if you'll find something on the first inspection, there doesn't have to be a second inspection. There just has to be documentation that it's been corrected.
Unless it's health, unless it's like safety. Obviously, a battery and a smoke detector, yeah, send a picture, it's cool. But if it's something serious, we will have to come back for an inspection.
Does this apply to all of Clark County?
Clarksville.
Clarksville only.
Clarksville proper. Now,
Can you speak, please, to the third-party inspections?
Let's finish his
Yeah,
question.
so-
Let me finish his first.
so my property is less than a mile from here, but it's Jeffersonville Township. So am I in Clarksville or am I in Jeffersonville?
Is it in the incorporated area of Clarksville?
Give me your address.
Parkwood.
Parkwood?
Yes, that's
If
right.
it's in Parkwood, that's Clarksville.
We just don't get Clarksville schools though.
I'm sorry.
So we just don't get Clarksville schools.
Gentlemen,
Yeah.
Can you speak to the third-party inspections? I read over the ordinance, and I heard what,
the question is, can we better explain
it's clear
third-party
as
inspectors?
mud, basically. And as far as, if I hire, we use third-party real estate managers. They qualify to do third-party inspections?
A
They are
professional-
licensed brokers pursuant to the
Well,
code.
they would likely qualify as a professional real estate manager,
Right.
but that does not meet the requirements for an inspection. Those were separate requirements.
Okay, so they have to have, so if I'm reading this right, you have to have a HUD inspection, a banker insurance company inspection, a registered architect, professional engineer, or a licensed commercial building inspector, in addition to a professional real estate manager. Is that correct? All of
Yes, the
those?
manager's not doing the inspection, they're just managing the property. This is the person doing the inspection.
Okay, but what constitutes a licensed person to do the third-party inspection? That's what I'm trying to find out. If it is a real estate brokerage
Those
firm.
people right there, the architect, the license, whatever.
So it's got to be an architect, an engineer, or someone who holds a nationally recognized code organization building inspector.
Yes,
Is
and
that
Rick
right?
can speak to the
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
So an ASHI approved home inspector would be okay?
Would a home inspector be okay?
If you all know a home inspector is cheaper than $200,
Yeah.
send me their contact.
They have to provide us with their roofer credentials.
Or banker or insurance agent?
A banker?
Not the banker
Banker
or the
itself.
insurance agent. It's an inspection that would be required by the bank or insurance.
By those institutions.
Not your insurance agent as in Doug Fisher for State Farm. He's not going to do the inspection. But if you have him manage the property, he would contract with the right professional.
So what are we talked about architects and all these things. So what are the qualifications of the inspectors that the town of Clarksville is going to be using? Because I look at this list, they have to be plumbers, HVAC, structural engineers, electricians. I mean, so they're expected to know all this stuff. If they know all this stuff, they can probably get a lot better job than the job working for Clarksville, would be my guess.
Well,
Sorry about that, Rick.
no problem. No problem. We built the program, we know what we're looking for, okay? The
So
staff.
tell me what it is.
The staff.
I'm asking, tell me what that is.
The staff, okay, has been trained, okay, and we were looking at every one of these items.
Okay, who's training them, Rick? See, you got me wound up here.
Mhm.
That doesn't answer it. Are you qualified to train people in all of these areas?
Yes, I am. I know the code. Okay.
So you can, knowing the code and being qualified to train somebody in how to work on air conditioning and plumbing.
Again, we're not looking to see, first off, we're not looking to see if you have to understand, it's very simple. You go in to see if the air conditioner works, the air conditioner works. Okay, you flush a toilet. I mean, how much qualification do you need to flush a toilet?
Why do you have to be an architect or an engineer to do that? Why can't you
Those
be-
definitions, okay, that is a definition, okay, let me back up just a little. First off, those definitions of what that is by the state statute.
Well, it's your statute, Rick, you're the one who did it.
No, we follow the state, this is based on state statute. This program is written strictly by state statute. That's what this is. They're the ones that require those qualifications.
I want to be clear, I'm not against any of this.
Oh, I totally understand that.
But I just want it handled in a professional way that.
And it will be.
Are we hiring an architect or an engineer to do the inspection?
You don't have to.
Well, you just said they have to.
No. You don't have to. You can rely on, that's an option. If you don't want the town to do it, that's an option. No, I'm not asking you guys to go out. If you don't want us to do it, you hire a third party. That's third party to do the work. If you say, okay, fine, you guys come out and do it, there's no architect, engineer involved.
Okay, so then the question is, how come the people inspecting for Clarksville don't have to have the same qualifications that you're expecting the third party people to have?
That is a state statute. That is strictly from the state. You need to, it's a state statute. Whatever it is. I don't
Is that not a
know.
reasonable question?
Is it a state law? Is it a state law? Could
So the
you
question
answer?
was asked, could it be an ASHI certified home inspector? We will have to check into the credentialing that ASHI requires in order to do that. Some of the home inspection certification programs that you can get through a 20-hour either online course or in-person course, we will have to take a look at those. If you have those people who are already doing the work, submit that information to us so we can review that. If the question was raised last time about a HUD inspection, HUD may or may not, depending on what program you're using through HUD, meet the standard for a third-party inspection. There's different HUD programs. They use different inspectors. So again, if your facility is using, and it may not be a HUD facility, but you may be using a person who also does HUD inspections, we will have to take a look at what their certification is and how they got it.
Is the Section 8 inspection, are you satisfactory if they make the inspection for the superintendent?
They won't give you a copy.
HUD won't give you a copy of the inspection.
We will have to review that. The thing is, there are a lot of those out there, and so I don't want to say it's on a case-by-case basis, but if we know how they got their certification and where they got their certification from, we review that program, and then we can say yes or no. Pardon?
Yeah. Real estate assessment center. It's required for any owner with a HUD mortgage.
We would have to see what they inspect.
That's a
see if it's
new one on me.
the same thing they're expecting.
In my 12 years of doing this, I've never heard of that program. Real estate?
Real estate assessment center. It's a requirement if any owner has a HUD mortgage.
Okay.
It's the same thing that we talked about a while ago, is a HUD inspector whether we qualified. Same question about Section 8 inspection, they make an inspection.
It would basically just be, if it aligns with our inspections, then it would be okay. Of what we are going in to inspect.
So would, you referenced earlier, financial, public housing authority, et cetera, would be acceptable form of third-party inspection?
As long as they meet the requirements that we would go in to inspect, yes.
So they follow the housing quality standard of HUD, would that be?
I'd have to see what they require. I don't know what they require.
You're familiar with the housing quality standards?
I understand that. I have to see what they inspect and then align it with ours.
Question here.
I got a question.
Hang on just a minute. There's a lady in the back that was before them.
About 3 questions.
Sure.
On the amount that is being charged, how much of that goes to the inspector?
Where's the money
For the
going?
inspection?
Okay, I'll answer that.
Yeah.
This program is funded through a non-reverting fund. In other words, this program funds itself, okay? So I know the question's been asked, and I'll just basically maybe stop some of the other ones. Okay. We anticipate, we estimate there's between 3,000 and 3,500 units in Clarksville. We anticipate that we're going to be doing 1,000 to 1,100 units
Per year.
per year. So that's roughly $200,000 to $200,000 to fund this program, okay, on an annual basis. Out of that, you have 2 inspectors, you will have an administrator to try to schedule, keeping all the paperwork going, you have the vehicles, and you have a third-party software people that we have to support to maintain the program. Those funds have been calculated. What we ended up doing, we calculated what we anticipated the cost of the program to be. And we took that, and that's actually why the fees are where the fees are. Okay?
Is it not an incentive for the second inspection to be made that on the first inspection, there would be something that would bring that person back that's
So you're thinking to generate more revenue?
No, not so
Okay.
much for revenue. The guy that's doing the inspection, isn't it to his advantage to go back a
Say on
second time?
salary or hourly?
No. Our employees are salaried. Their salary is fixed. Their salary is fixed.
Regardless of how many inspections they have to make?
Absolutely. They get the same salary year after year after year.
All right, now, someone that attended the other meeting said that there was a requirement that every property was to have screens. Is that so?
Under the requirement for buildings, windows are required to have screens.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm 94 years old. I have property that's older than I am. I can remember when spring came and we got the screens out, we took them down in the fall. And then somehow or another, air conditioning came in. Every one of my properties has air conditioning. They don't need screens. Now, in some of these houses, I don't even know if you can buy, if they're standard size. But I think that's a very good point that somebody's going to have a re-inspection because they can't even find the damn screens. And the last question I'd like to know is, was this a unanimous vote of the town council?
That I don't remember. Quite honestly, I cannot answer. I don't remember. I believe it was, but I cannot say that.
It's a matter of public record. Everybody needs to look at that. But come election.
Okay, thank you.
Just so you understand, ordinance such as this, if they're not unanimous on the first reading, then they have to wait to the next council meeting and have a second reading. And they have to pass by at least 4 votes or the majority of the people in attendance at the meeting.
Hey, Rick, I got a question on safety.
Hey, I got a question.
Hang on a minute.
Right, good follow.
Maybe I'll let's see.
Yeah, just a minute. This young lady has had her hand up for.
So if I have a residential home that is a rental property and it has been Section 8 approved and a year contract and they come out and inspect it every year before they renew their contract with us, does that contract pass, or I'm sorry, that inspection, would that be used for your wall inspection?
Yeah, and I, again, we would have to find out what part of that HUD inspection it is. We don't know all of it, and because you may have different one way or the other.
I'm sorry?
There's more than one HUD inspection program.
Correct, but there's a
Okay,
Section 8.
and, yeah, I know, but we would have to, if it is, then it'd be fine.
And so what would we give to you, just their inspection?
Yeah, well, you would give us their inspection.
I won't give you a copy.
I got a question.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. 60, 70-year-old apartment buildings have top and ground wire. Newer places have 3 wires for the ground, and then some have ground fault. Are ever all these old buildings going to be tore out and rewired?
No, that's not what we're checking. That is nothing what we're doing. Gotta make sure they have power. Okay, because you do understand throughout what you're actually talking about is building codes. I cannot make anyone come in unless you do a major remodel to meet the codes of 2020. If your house was built in 1925 and there's been no major upgrades, It's in 1925, the code, whatever it was in 1925. Okay?
Hey, Rick. So, got a question. As far as these fees go, like, I'm just a one owner or like one rental house, so the fees aren't like, I'm not most excited about this. Is there anywhere in the ordinance that limits the amount of increases that we can see? Or is this rental inspection fee only gonna be $300 for every 3 years for the end of time? Like, at what point are you all gonna increase your fees?
There is no intentions of increasing fees, okay? And quite honestly, you know, they would never increase, okay?
The program has to be net neutral, meaning the fees have to pay for all the expenses of running the program. If after the course of 3 or 4 years, the program is not running with a net zero balance without a profit, as you guys would call it, there may have to be a review and an increase of fees. Those fees are set by ordinance by the council.
Can I ask a question directly to you? And I don't want to sound offensive. Are you an elected official or are you hired by the town?
I'm appointed by the town council.
Okay, all right, by the town council, so, okay, got it, thank you.
Now, to answer one more question with that is if in 3 or 4 years, I'm gonna reverse it, okay? If by chance there's a surplus, okay, depending exactly what this is, we may reduce the fees. Mike, who knows? Who knows?
Some of these houses are over 100 years old, so this inspection, are you planning on condemning some houses?
I would hope not through this program.
I mean, what are you doing?
Not through the program.
These
No,
houses
I
are
mean,
over 100 years old.
The house that I grew up in is still existent, okay? It was constructed in 1925, so it's getting very close, okay? The wiring still works, the plumbing still works. As long as these items are there, that house is, I mean, it's not, we're not gonna condemn it. The only reason is there's very, very strong reasons to condemn a home.
But it needs,
Or any structure.
but it needs screens.
It needs screens.
The house I personally live in is from the early 20s.
Okay.
My windows don't open.
Okay.
They've got 10 coats of paint on
That's an
They
issue.
make it so, what do you screen, just
They gotta open.
screen, and it's.
Do you rent that? Do you rent that, the one you weren't renting?
No.
Okay.
No,
I grew
we're
up in
70s house.
And I'm not getting defensive either. I grew up in this house in 1925, and did they have screens that you normally see? No, but they have hooks on it, and the screens put in. Every year, and of course, I'm a lot older than a lot of people think, but every spring, we would go ahead and put those screens back on, and they would stay there.
But every window.
Every window. If the windows would be used.
That's what I'm saying, even if it doesn't open.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, no, well,
Does that fail?
windows are supposed to open and close. Windows are supposed to open and close. Okay, if the window isn't open, then I would have to go back through, but in reality, windows are there to open and close. Okay, to let light in, open and close. Okay, you know, the issue is why the screens are there. You may provide air conditioning for the people, but maybe I move into your house and I prefer fresh air. I can't have that window.
I agree with fresh air. So at my 1920s house, I have to get that through my front door. I have a screen on my storm door.
Okay.
Because my windows are non-functioning. So I open my front door and that's where my screen is. That's why I asked, every window needs a screen or just the ones to air out the house?
I never even.
It's a fair question.
Yeah, it's a fair question.
And it's my own personal living situation. You know, it's not a hypothetical, it's how I
If you have a
personally.
screen in your attic, I won't.
We
have another part to the question.
I'm curious to, how come we just found out about this just like weeks before it happened? And, you know, nobody sent any information out in the mail or nothing?
My
It's a
info went to my
substantial
rental
amount of
property.
money. You got 30 houses, do the math. Every 3 years, that's a lot of money. And we already pay double taxes because they're investment property. And here you are coming for some more, and we weren't even told about it, nothing, as homeowners.
Well, we have been working on this program for 3.5 years, okay? It has been going on for 3.5 years, okay? No, for 3.5 years, we've been working on this ordinance, okay? It goes through, I mean, yeah, did we announce it all the time? No, but I mean, it was talked throughout those 3.5 years on multiple occasions with the town council, during a town council meeting.
And I understand that there was multiple media coverage of the program. Now, I understand not everybody reads a newspaper.
I read it every day, I never see it.
I can tell you that we did multiple interviews, not only with the News and Tribune, we've also done interviews with the Courier Journal from Louisville. We've done interviews with TV stations. It has been covered in the press. I'm not leaning on it as an excuse, but it has been covered. The information has been out there.
Okay, I got a question over here. Hang on.
Couple real quick questions. First off, can the landlord be present during the inspection?
Yes, we encourage it.
Okay. If
Or
you,
your agent that you.
Or property manager, it's a landlord.
what was my next question? Okay, how long does each inspection take?
We're gonna hopefully be out within 10 minutes of each one.
Okay. And if you have multiple houses, like we have 4 houses. We do 4 houses per year. Okay. How many? How many more do we do? How many actual, and this is a serious question, how many people in this room that are landlords actually have these issues because they don't prepare for their tenants? I mean, I know quite a few of them, so in all seriousness, how is this such a big problem that we have to go through?
Rick, you want to answer that?
I barely hear.
Okay.
I'll repeat it. I know a few people in this room that own houses. My husband and I have owned houses 25, 35 years. How many landlords honestly do not take care of the property? How many provide unsafe conditions for their tenants? Aside from the tenants that trash it, because there are tons of those.
And Rick, to her, follow up on her comment.
How
Hang on a minute, she's still speaking.
actually do not take care of the property? Good question.
Okay, with that,
And
do you want to
and
add
follow
to
up on
that?
her comment, I think we can all agree in here, everybody's in here because I would assume we're all good landlords, we take care of our property, we're concerned. I'm gonna use the term slumlords, okay? You all know who those are in this town, because you probably have repeated complaints, you've had code violations, you've had all kinds of problems. Why doesn't the city identify those folks, go after them first, and see how this program works, and then clean up that, rather than coming to those of us who do our best to improve the property and keep our property and have good relationships with our tenants and everything else.
So, and how many we have, and it's hot. I mean,
We cannot implement a program that is just specific to targeted individuals. It has to be across the entire spectrum that meets the requirement.
But you can begin with the problems. Don't begin with the folks that are abiding by the law, and you're preaching to the choir. We all want to have nice properties because there's a reason we spend a lot of money to buy, to invest, to keep them fixed up. We pay the taxes. All through COVID, we did all that. We didn't get any breaks, okay? But there's a group of landlords, and you know who they are, we know who they are, that run junk properties. Why don't you spend the first year, go after them, get that cleaned up, and then come back and say, okay, we got the bugs figured out, we got all the stuff worked out, it's been a year implemented, then come back and talk to us about it.
Can I ask something?
Okay, go ahead.
In regards to that, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, okay? And because we do take care of our properties, we pay a higher tax rate, and Clarksville has the highest tax rate in the fall cities already, okay? And here's additional cost coming on. But what he said is, why don't you all take the incentive, knowing that there's slumlords, and you want to clean them all up, why doesn't the town take the incentive and send to every single tenant in the town of Clarksville, asking them about their landlord and how it's being handled, and then address it from that way when you've got a complaint from a tenant?
If we went and asked every tenant, first off, you understand, of all the times we've been out there, we get a lot of pushback from the tenants. They don't want to talk to us sometimes. The only time they do is when it comes to the end, when they can't live there anymore. They're tired of the one question that Brian asked earlier, of retaliation. They are. I'm telling you, of all the stuff we go out there, the first thing, I don't want my name. I don't want to tell you where I'm at. It's a complex, or it's a specific unit, because I don't want to get kicked out. I don't have enough money to go to a different one. I can't move right now. I can't afford that. We get that all the time. Okay, so just to let you know, that's one of the issues. There are very specific places out here that we go to regularly.
But you know who those are, and I guess I'm asking, can the city focus on those people for the first year, we're implementing it, it covers his base to say, okay, it's implemented for the whole community of landlords, but focus on the problems and get those fixed so that we all have a better community as opposed to...
Okay, so let me just, and I know we've got a lot of questions here, so let's just go ahead and say we focused on that. We did that the first year, but to understand that we're gonna hit every apartment every 3 years, okay? So what ends up happening,